Hello, my name's Chris Hart and I'm the Principal Trumpet with the Royal Scottish National Orchestra, and here is my beginner's guide to the trumpet. What do I love about playing the trumpet? Well, we have the most fun. A lot of the time our job is to play the loud, dramatic bits, which I really enjoy. But then you do occasionally get the odd kind of really quiet, sweet tune where everything stops in the orchestra and it's almost like the spotlight turns on you. I think that's my favourite thing, is the drama. The trumpet, even though it's called a brass instrument, is actually made of copper. We have the mouthpiece, and we have the valves and the slides and the bell. When you pick up your trumpet and you want to make a note, there are two really important things. You have to have a really good breath, like a really big yawn. And then you have to make a buzz. Now, I bet you every single one of you has blown a raspberry before. You just have to make your lips a tiny bit tighter. And then you take your mouthpiece and you put it on your lips. And then we have the buzz. And then you concentrate on making a really nice note. You start off with a bottom C. And it should feel as easy as a really good deep breath. On the trumpet, we can play really low. And if we want to, we can also play really high. The coolest sound I think the trumpet can make is using one of these. This is called a Harman mute. We have lots and lots of different types of mutes. And what you do is you put it into the bell of the trumpet and it changes the sound. So now when we put it in there, it creates kind of a smoky, jazzy kind of feel. Lots of people would say an elephant. There is actually a piece in a piece of Christmas music called Sleigh Ride, written by Leroy Anderson, where you actually have to be a horse at the end. So you can be a horse, you can be lots of things. It's all down to your imagination. So physically, we sit right at the back. In our orchestra, we have 3 trumpet players, we have 3 trombone players and 1 tuba. And we all sit in a line so we can hear what each other is doing all the time. And also so we're a little bit further away, because if we were sat at the front, you'd never hear the strings. I get a lot of big, sweeping, soaring, high melodies, often that play with the violins or with the high woodwinds. A really good example where the trumpet kind of shines through and sits on top of the whole orchestral sound is a piece called Don Juan by Richard Strauss. This is called a piccolo trumpet. So you've already seen this one, which is a normal B-flat trumpet. We have the piccolo trumpet, which is a lot smaller. It's about half the length of this one. And it makes playing high a lot easier. That's a bit from Bach's Brandenburg Concerto No. 2. These are called natural trumpets because they use the notes that are available in what's called the harmonic series. There's certain notes, depending on how long this bit of pipe is, that you can play. Composers would often write fanfares for these instruments because unless you played really high, they couldn't do a lot else. If you were starting out, like me, you might get one of these. Now, this is a B-flat cornet. I played one of these for probably the first 5, 6, 7 years of playing an instrument. Or you start out on one of these. Now, these are a little bit longer, and when you're quite young, this can be a little bit heavy because it's a bit further away from your body. So if you do find one of these a little bit heavy when you start to play, you could ask a teacher to see if you could try a cornet, because they're almost exactly the same instrument. They can play all the same things, but this one is just a little bit close to your body. My favourite tune to play on the trumpet is anything by George Gershwin. He was a fantastic writer of melodies, and as well as the piece that I played for you earlier on, which was from one of his pieces called Porgy and Bess, I also love the trumpet solo in the middle of American in Paris. These high-tech things, believe it or not, are actually not too dissimilar from the natural trumpet I showed you earlier on. To make one of these, you need approximately 10 feet of rubber hose pipe, a funnel and some tape, and of course your mouthpiece. If you want to get a mouthpiece by itself, you can go on various bidding websites that I probably shouldn't mention the name of, and you can get them for not much money, £5 or £10. You can get one through the post and you can make one of these yourself. There we go. So when you're learning to play or learning to do anything really, regular practice is what helps. If you're learning to play an instrument, a little and often I think is better. Especially when you play a brass instrument, or the trumpet in particular, you're using these muscles here, which are very small. You could do half an hour a day, and that will really help you when you start to get further along the road, because it will give you a really solid base to build your playing on. If you've seen this video and you want to get a trumpet of your own, how do you go about finding one? There are a few ways of doing it. Firstly, you could maybe speak to your music teacher at school and say, I saw this really cool video, I want to play the trumpet, where can I get one? Often schools have some lying about in a cupboard, or the music service might be able to help you. Another option, certainly in the UK, is to go on the internet and find your local brass band. They're often run by fantastic volunteers and amateur musicians who absolutely love helping the next generation of players along the road. If you want to take the plunge yourself, luckily beginner instruments for the trumpet and cornet are relatively inexpensive compared to a lot of other instruments. You can pick them up again on your favourite online bidding sites for not much money at all, and then you can just have a go at your leisure. You can play in anything you like. I could play in an orchestra, I could use this one and play in a brass band. I could play on stage at Glastonbury behind a band. I could go and play with Jools Holland. I could play in a jazz club. Maybe not me, because I can't play jazz. But on the trumpet, you can play jazz. You can play any way you like. I think it makes the most incredible sounds. You get the most brilliant tunes in the big pieces. Why would you not want to play it?